Whoa, I am just not feeling it today. Huh. Bad sleep? No. Drink water? Yeah. Sweat it out? You know it. Poop? You know how much fiber I eat. What about some fresh air? Come on, dude. Seriously, I'm really trying to figure this one out, okay? Yeah. How about you go try figuring it out outside? Oh, yeah. Like going outside is gonna just magically fix everything. All right? Do what you want to do. What the? It's working, isn't it? Huh? No. There's just a family of turkeys out there gobbling and stuff. Now that I think of it, I should go check on them, make sure they're okay. You stay in here. Just keep doing what you're doing. Yo, what is up? Welcome back to another week of How to Health. My name is Kevin. I run liftandbalance.com, where we take aim at all things health and do it in an odd, weird, interesting, and highly sarcastic manner. Today, we are immersing ourselves in good old nature. Nice. Not right at this very moment, but we were before, and we will be again, out there right after this. Just as production team. We are once again diving into why reconnecting with the environment and the elements that we've evolved in for hundreds of thousands of years is good for biological business. Oh, and we have some really interesting, cool new data that strengthens the case. This new research that we will be diving into today provides some first of its kind data into how being outdoors affects the short-term and long-term composition of our literal 5-pound mushy membrane, our brain. So in the next 13 minutes and 72 seconds, we'll walk through our current nature habits, what the data has said on nature's benefits to date, what this new research has to add, and how you can write your very own nature prescription moving forward. That is, if you don't have your production team writing your nature prescriptions for you already. Without further ado, let's get some fresh air. I can feel it. Feel better already. Our current indoor habits. Here's a stat, and one that we've talked about before, but it always provides a powerful perspective. We humans spend 90% of our lives indoors, shielded from the environment that we've evolved in for hundreds of thousands of years. And if that weren't enough to have an effect on our everyday health, let's add the fact that there's a pretty high probability, as we cover in this video, that our indoor environment is riddled with hidden toxins. Toxins that could very well be altering our cellular, metabolic, physiological, and psychological function. And unlike middle school algebra, this double negative doesn't make a positive. Put the calculators down. We're good, production team. Not this time. Thanks for having my back, though. Now, don't get me wrong. There is no doubt that having shelter and living comfort is advantageous for our biological mission of survival. But we kind of gotta beg the question, have we reached the point where it's time to start reversing those stats a little bit? Let's see what some of the existing data has to say. The data to date. A growing body of research on our mostly indoor society has revealed that exposure to natural environments and time spent outdoors is good for biological business. Who would have thunk? What are some specific examples? First off, several studies have shown that time outdoors is negatively associated with risk of chronic disease in both adults and children. There's been a noticeable link to that 5-pound mushy membrane as well, as time outdoors have been associated with increases in well-being in adolescents and have shown a reduction in depressive symptoms in adults. Production team, tell me again why we can't take this show outdoors? Oh, that's it. The turkeys. They keep trying to mate with the camera equipment. Got ya. But it doesn't just stop there. 2 meta-analyses have demonstrated that outdoor nature interventions and even exposure to literal photos and videos depicting nature can lead to improvements in cognitive activity, such as cognitive flexibility and working memory. I know. I can see you Nat Geo diehards grinning through the screen right now. Rock on with your virtual nature self. Interestingly enough, all of these cognitive functions have been linked back to the prefrontal cortex. And before we dive into the research, it's worth talking about this decision-making part of the brain. It's the most recently evolved area that gives us the very unique capability in doing the hard thing when it's the right thing. Your brain's prefrontal cortex. The PFC, not to be mistaken for KFC. Two different things. No, we can't order Uber Eats. Put the phone down. This area of the brain is most typically associated with executive function, including working memory and selective attention. It gives us the capability to execute complex executive behaviors that incorporate things such as sensory inputs, social contexts, emotions, and decision making. It allows us to weigh options with all of the variables and come to some sort of conclusion in a matter of milliseconds to seconds. Yet, somehow, choosing what to eat can take all day. This part of the brain does not come fully online until we reach our mid-20s, which kind of explains a lot, at least for me. And interestingly, many psychiatric disorders have been associated with a reduction in gray matter in this prefrontal area of the brain. Shocking, I know, and would probably make a hell of a lot more sense if we knew what gray matter was. Our brain matter. Because our brain matters. No, we're gonna cut that? Okay. We're keeping it. We have two main classifications of matter that make up our nervous system. First, there's gray matter, which is grayish nerve tissue of the central nervous system, mainly composed of nerve cell bodies and dendrites. This is where the actual processing of information and tasks is done. AKA, this is where the shit happens. Then we have white matter, which is the whitish nerve tissue of the central nervous system, which is mainly composed of myelinated nerve fibers, or axons, that provide the communication between the different gray matter areas, as well as from gray matter areas to the rest of the body. Now remember this, because it's one of the main data points that the study we're about to review tracks. All in all, there have been strong associations between nature, illness, and our brain, with the general conclusion being that getting out in the element is good for us intelligent walking apes. Now that we have the stage set, let's see why this study out of the Max Planck Institute for Human Development is significant. The study. This was a first of its kind study aimed to tease out how time spent outdoors affects the literal composition of our brains. The study was small, but the data set per individual was big, as it included a whopping 280 MRI brain scans over the course of 6 months. The researchers' goal was to unravel how day-to-day variations of healthy individuals' time spent outdoors may be associated with variations in brain structure. And knowing that previous literature has demonstrated that being raised in cities is associated with smaller prefrontal cortex volume, they hypothesized that gray matter in the PFC would be positively associated with time spent outdoors. So before we get to the results, let's highlight the very interesting and important structure of the study. The methods. Researchers regularly examine 6 medication-free, healthy, city-living individuals aged 24 to 32 in Berlin, with each completing 40 to 50 MRI brain scans over the course of 6 to 8 months. This brain data was correlated with self-reported behavior leading up to each scan. During each visit, participants were asked about their fluid intake, caffeine consumption, time spent outdoors, how much free time they had, and physical activity. This was all to tease out if these factors altered the association between time spent outdoors and the change in brain structure, which was measured in gray and white matter. Each participant also wore a Fitbit to track their daily steps, and researchers also recorded other notable factors such as time of year and daylight data to highlight any significant associations. Again, this was a small study, but there was a lot of data, which makes this different than most imaging studies, which actually typically have the opposite characteristics. Larger sample size, but less data per subject. This structure helps solve the issue of something called intra-individual variability, which is the simple fact that a few point-in-time snapshots can have a tremendous amount of variability. And thus, it shouldn't be assumed that 1 or 2 scans can provide a silver bullet of conclusive data. So this was a unique study by the plain fact that there was a very large brain imaging data set for each participant, with scans being conducted twice a week. So what happened? The results. And we'll get right to it. The brain scan showed that time spent outdoors by the participants was positively correlated with gray matter in the right dorsolateral prefrontal cortex. When researchers tested whether the observed effects were driven by confounding factors, such as the aforementioned time of year, sunshine, fluid intake, caffeine consumption, free time, or physical activity, they found that time spent outdoors had a positive influence on this area of the brain, regardless of other influencing factors. And after applying a multiple regression framework, they found that time spent outdoors leading up to the scan predicted momentary positive effects and no negative ones, meaning the brain composition was slightly altered based off the participants' time spent outdoors leading up to each individual scan. To quote the study, "The facts that we observe day-to-day variations in brain structure may seem odd with the assumption that brain structure, measured using structural MRI, is usually considered to be a relatively stable trait characteristic. However, there is increasing evidence hinting a short-term alteration of brain structure within the range of hours." All this, along with previous data, have researchers suggesting that our brain structure and mood improve acutely when we spend time outdoors, with it most likely affecting concentration, working memory, and psyche as a whole. Makes you think. Speaking of thinking, how can you apply this prescription to your everyday life? It's funny to think that we've reached a point where we have to literally schedule nature time, but also hard to argue that going outside doesn't just make you feel effing awesome. So here are a few tips that I've used to get some more daily outdoor time, a lot of which that we talk about on other videos on this channel, which I'll link below. First, try to incorporate a little nature into your morning light protocol, which I know you all have, right? Because we've talked about the importance of circadian rhythm alignment in all those other videos. So now, by spending 10 to 15 minutes out in some ambient sun in the morning, you can check off 2 boxes, maybe 3, or even 4 if you follow this morning movement protocol. Next, try to take a meal outside. An easy one to do this for is lunch. No commitment, no family, typically just you. Bring it outside. Then try to simply walk more places, especially if you live in an urban area. And if you don't, you can do things such as parking far away in the parking lot to get a few extra outdoor steps in. Walking is not only the most underrated exercise on the market, but it's also a great way to pile on those outdoor minutes. Next, since we spend 90% of our lives indoors, let's bring some nature to us. Open the doors, open the windows, invite some houseplants to the party. Bring some nature and fresh air into your home. The microdiversity of one's home has actually been associated with positive health benefits. And finally, when you can make it happen, combine 2 of the best mood-boosting prescriptions we have, nature and sweat. And bring the workout outside to stack those brain-boosting benefits. When it comes down to it, sometimes the most powerful and effective solutions to our problems are a door handle and a twist away. Any health intervention that comes with all upside and essentially no downside is tough to come by these days. And getting some quality nature time provides just that. So make an effort and go and put some nature therapy on your calendar this week and see how you feel. You may be surprised. Will it solve all your problems? Probably not, but it most definitely will not hurt unless those turkeys come back. Anyway, if there aren't any problems, there's nothing for your production team to do. What was that? You haven't been solving problems? You've been causing them? Well, that explains a lot. I think I could use a little nature therapy right now. I'll let you know if it works.